Sometimes life hits you so hard that your breath feels trapped in your chest. There are moments when the night seems too long, the pressure too heavy, and the tears too hot to hide. But right there, right in the middle of the storm, something holy rises inside you. A whisper, a strength, a name. And that name changes everything. Because you have Jesus' name, you don't crumble in trials. You praise through them. You don't break under the weight. You lift your hands and say, Lord, you're still faithful. When fear tries to grip you, that name pushes fear out. When lack surrounds you, that name demands provision. When sickness speaks, that name declares healing. You see, praising in the middle of trials isn't pretending the storm isn't real. It's proclaiming that the storm isn't final. Your praise says, this pain will not own me. This trial will not define me. This valley will not bury me. Because you have a name that darkness can't argue with, a name hell can't oppose, a name heaven always responds to. When you say his name, chains don't just loosen, chains break. When you say his name, depression doesn't just soften, depression has to bow. When you say his name, your spirit stands taller, stronger, bolder. Trials may roar, but your praise roars louder. So lift your head, wipe your tears, breathe again. You are not standing in this battle alone. You carry a name that has never lost, never bowed, never failed. And when you praise in the face of trials, you are declaring to heaven, hell, and every circumstance around you, I know who walks with me. I know whose name I carry. I know victory is already written. Keep praising. Your breakthrough is closer than your pain wants you to believe. There are moments in life when the weight of everything you are carrying becomes almost unbearable, when disappointment hits harder than expected, when the people you trusted walk away, when prayers seem unanswered, and your strength feels scattered in pieces. In those moments, it's easy to believe that you have fallen too far, failed too deeply, or broken beyond repair. But the truth is this. There is a name that reaches for you even when you feel too weak to reach back. There is a name that bends low when life has pushed you to your knees. That name does not step in with condemnation, nor does it measure your worth by your weakness. It lifts you, not because you earned it, but because love refuses to leave you in the place where pain tried to bury you. When life knocks you down, that name whispers courage where fear once screamed, speaks hope where your heart only heard silence, and restores strength where exhaustion tried to win. Even when everything shakes, that name remains your unbreakable foundation. There are seasons when you wake up feeling empty, like the joy you once carried slipped out of your hands without warning. You try to push forward, but the heaviness inside you keeps dragging your feet. That is where many people settle, in silent battles, in quiet despair, in hidden hurt. But the name you carry does not allow your story to settle in defeat. When life knocks you down, the name above every name becomes the hand that lifts your chin, reminding you that darkness does not have the final say. It reminds you that you are not forgotten, not abandoned, not overlooked. Every time you whisper that name, the atmosphere shifts. Even when your heart is trembling, saying his name sends a message into your circumstance. I still have hope. And hope, once awakened, begins to rebuild what brokenness tried to erase. Sometimes the fall isn't caused by tragedy, but by inner battles. Self-doubt, fear, shame, or failures you can't forget. These are the moments when you don't just fall physically, you fall inwardly. And yet the name that lifts you works just as powerfully in the hidden places of your soul. It reaches into your thoughts, into the memories you're afraid to touch, into the mistakes that replay like echoes you can't silence. That name rewrites the narrative fear wrote in your mind and breaks the power of lies that tried to shape your identity. When life knocks you down, especially through internal storms, that name becomes a stabilizing force. It pulls you back to truth. You're forgiven, redeemed, chosen, strengthened. And when you finally feel yourself rising again, You realize it wasn't your strength that carried you, it was the power behind the name that never leaves you in the shadows of who you used to be. There are also days when life hits unexpectedly, when the doctor's report changes your world, when financial pressure becomes unbearable, when relationships crumble, when dreams collapse without warning. These blows feel personal, almost suffocating. But the name that lifts you is not intimidated by bad news, not shaken by changing circumstances, not limited by earthly outcomes. That name has lifted generations before you, stood unchallenged through history, and remains undefeated across every battle known to humanity. It does not merely comfort you, it empowers you. When life knocks you down, that name becomes your strength to rise even when nothing around you suggests that rising is possible. You feel courage stirring again, your vision clearing again, your heart believing again, not because circumstances change instantly, but because the name you lean on is greater than anything that rose against you. And when you finally stand up from the ground, slowly, shakily, but surely, you realize that every time life knocked you down, you didn't rise alone. Something sacred lifted you. Something holy steadied you. Something eternal carried you. That name became the strength beneath your weakness, the light in your darkness, the anchor in your storm, and the voice telling your spirit, "Get up. You are not done yet." You rise not because life gets easier, but because that name makes you stronger. You rise because grace refuses to let your failures define you. You rise because love keeps pulling you upward. And even if life knocks you down again, that name will always be there, lifting, restoring, reminding you that no fall is final, as long as you call on the one whose power never runs out. There are nights in life when the weight of your circumstances presses so heavily on your chest that even breathing feels like a battle. Nights when the silence around you seems louder than your prayers, when fear grows tall in the shadows, and when hope feels like a distant memory slipping through your fingers. These are the nights that test the deepest corners of your soul. Nights that make you wonder if God hears you, if heaven remembers you, if the light will ever break through again. Yet it is in these very moments that praise becomes more than just a song. It becomes your lifeline. Praise isn't about ignoring the darkness. It's about declaring that darkness will not have the final word. When you lift your voice in praise during the hardest moments, something powerful shifts within you and around you. Walls you thought were unmovable begin to crack. Anxiety begins to weaken, and your spirit begins to rise again with a strength that isn't your own. Praise becomes your weapon, not because the night disappears instantly, but because your heart becomes anchored in the one who stands above the night. There are seasons when praise feels unnatural, almost impossible, like trying to lift your hands when they feel too heavy, or trying to speak words of faith when your throat is tight from holding back tears. But this is where the true power of praise reveals itself. Praise in the daytime is gratitude, but praise in the night is warfare. It cuts through sorrow like a blade of light, reminding your spirit of truth even when your emotions scream otherwise. In your darkest nights, praise becomes a declaration that God is still good even when life feels cruel. It becomes a reminder that He is still near even when you cannot feel Him. Every whispered thank you becomes a step out of fear. Every spoken "you are faithful" becomes a blow against despair. Praise teaches your heart to rise even when circumstances have pushed you to the ground, and slowly, steadily, your trembling spirit begins to steady itself again as praise rewires your perspective, strengthens your faith, and awakens hope where hopelessness tried to settle. There are battles fought in the darkness that no one else sees. Internal wars, hidden tears, private heartbreaks. These are the kinds of nights when your mind becomes a battlefield and your thoughts turn into weapons used against you. In such moments, praise is not just a weapon, it is protection. When you declare God's goodness, your mind begins to shift from panic to peace. When you magnify Him instead of your problems, your heart begins to release what it was never meant to carry alone. Praise redirects your focus, reminding you that your fear may be loud, but your God is louder. In the darkest nights, praise brings a sudden clarity, a warmth, a courage that fear cannot imitate. It breaks the cycle of overthinking and stops the spiral of anxiety by calling your soul back into alignment with truth. You begin to realize that darkness is not your home, it's just a place you're passing through, and praise becomes the lantern that lights your steps as you walk forward with renewed strength. There are also nights when the darkness around you is not just emotional but circumstantial. Maybe you are facing financial pressure that feels suffocating, a diagnosis that stole your peace, a broken relationship that shattered your heart, or a dream that seems out of reach. In these moments, praise becomes the force that keeps you standing when everything else tries to collapse around you. It builds resilience in you, reminding your spirit that God is not limited by what you see. Praise opens the door for miracles because it shifts your trust from your own strength to His power. When you praise in the night, you are not pretending everything is fine. You are acknowledging that even though everything is not fine, God is still in control. Praise declares that the story is not over, that delay is not denial, that setbacks are setups for greater grace. In those deep, quiet hours when discouragement tries to swallow your dreams, praise becomes your shield, blocking despair and filling you with a supernatural endurance to keep going. And when the night stretches longer than you expected, when answers delay, when breakthrough takes time, when healing feels slow, praise keeps your heart alive. It becomes the heartbeat of your faith, the rhythm that keeps you moving when weariness pulls you backward. In the darkest nights, praise holds you together. It reminds you that storms do not last forever, and that dawn always comes to those who refuse to let go of hope. Praise keeps your spirit from collapsing under pressure, keeps your mind from drifting into fear, keeps your heart soft when pain tries to harden it. And though the night may not end immediately, praise ensures that the night never breaks you. It sustains you with strength you cannot explain, courage you didn't know you had, and peace that makes no sense compared to what you're facing. Praise becomes your weapon, your shield, your anchor, carrying you through the darkest nights with a light that darkness cannot extinguish. There are moments in life when the weight of trials feels so overwhelming that you start to wonder if the struggle will ever end. The heartache, the confusion, the unanswered prayers. Sometimes they linger long enough to convince you that this is how life will always be. But the truth you must hold on to with everything in you is this: trials are temporary, but His name is eternal. The challenges you face today have an expiration date, but the power behind His name has no limit, no boundary, no weakening. When the pressure mounts and your strength feels drained, His name stands tall above every storm, unchanged and unchallenged. Your trials may shake you, but they can never shake the one who stands with you. His name does not age, does not fade, does not grow tired. And when life feels heavy, when the night seems unending, His name becomes the anchor that keeps your soul from sinking. Trials may try to convince you that they are permanent, but His name, firm, everlasting, and full of glory, reminds you that what you're facing is only a moment, not a life sentence. There are seasons when pain feels like a constant companion, when each day brings new obstacles and each night brings new tears, and yet even in these seasons His name remains steady. Your trial may have changed your plans, your emotions, your strength, but His name has not changed. When you speak His name in the middle of hardship, something powerful happens. You remember that the one you call upon is not limited by time, circumstance, or earthly barriers. His name carries authority that does not diminish just because you are tired. It carries peace that does not vanish just because chaos surrounds you. When everything in life feels temporary, your strength, your clarity, your courage, that eternal name becomes your source. It holds you in place when life feels unstable. It breathes hope into you when discouragement steals your breath. It reminds you that trials come in waves, but His name remains the same yesterday, today, and forever. There are days when trials seem to stack on top of each other, building walls that feel impossible to climb. Your mind becomes tangled with questions you cannot answer and fears you cannot shake. But the eternal name you carry cuts through the confusion with authority. Trials may blur your vision, but His name restores it. Trials may drain your energy, but His name revives it. When you call upon that name, you are not speaking into the air. You are reaching into eternity, drawing strength from a source that never runs dry. And even when nothing around you changes instantly, something inside you shifts. The despair begins to lose its grip. The heaviness begins to lift. The lies, the trial whispered, begin to break. Because His name carries truth that cannot be argued with. Your trial might be loud, but His name speaks louder. It speaks stability over your panic, purpose over your confusion, and victory over your fear. And suddenly your heart remembers, this trial is passing, but His name endures. There are circumstances that try to convince you that you are alone, abandoned, or forgotten. But when you speak His eternal name, every lie collapses. His name carries presence, unshakable, unwavering, unending presence. Trials might surround you, but His name surrounds trials. He sits above the very thing that tries to defeat you. When you call on His name, you align yourself with heaven's strength, not your own. You remind every circumstance that you are backed by a power greater than the storm. Trials are temporary, meant to test you, not break you. But His name is eternal, meant to uphold you, strengthen you, and secure you. When life feels like it is falling apart, His name holds the pieces together. When the future feels frightening, His name lights the path. When the burden feels too heavy, His name becomes the shoulder you lean on. And even though the trial still exists, it no longer defines you, because His name has declared a different story over your life. And when the temporary trials finally pass, when the storm settles, when the tears dry, when the breakthrough comes, you will look back and see clearly that His eternal name carried you through every moment of it. The trial was a moment, but His name was the constant. The trial brought pressure, but His name brought peace. The trial tested you, but His name sustained you. You begin to understand that the endurance in your spirit did not come from your own strength, but from the eternal power woven into His name. Even when you doubted, His name remained faithful. Even when you stumbled, His name remained strong. And even now, as life continues, His name stands ready to lift you, guide you, protect you, and empower you. Trials come and go, but His name remains forever. Unchanged in power, unshaken in authority, and unlimited in love. There are moments in life when everything inside you feels shaken, when the battle is so fierce, the pressure so intense, and the fear so loud that you start to believe victory is out of reach. It's in these moments that your strength seems too small, your courage too fragile, and your hope too thin. But there is a turning point, a holy shift, a spiritual breaking of ground that begins not when the circumstances change, but when you declare His name. The moment His name leaves your lips, something stirs in the atmosphere around you. You may not see it instantly, but heaven hears you immediately. Darkness begins to tremble. Fear begins to loosen. Confusion begins to fade. His name does what your strength cannot. It reaches into places your hands cannot touch, fights battles you cannot see, and commands outcomes you cannot control. Victory does not begin when the problem ends. Victory begins when your faith rises enough to speak His name into the battle and declare that you are not fighting alone. There are seasons when life tries to silence your voice, when grief weighs heavy on your chest, when anxiety tightens around your mind, when disappointment makes you hesitant to believe again. But the moment you speak His name, something inside you awakens. Declaring His name is not a ritual, it's an act of spiritual authority. It's a proclamation that you are shifting your focus from the battle to the one who stands above it. When you say His name in the middle of fear, you remind your soul that fear is not your master. When you say His name in the middle of tears, you remind your spirit that sorrow will not drown you. When you say his name in the middle of uncertainty, you pull truth into your situation. He is near. He is present. He is powerful. The battle may still be raging around you, but once his name is declared, you are no longer fighting from a place of desperation. You are fighting from a place of divine backing. There are times when the battle is not external but internal, when the war is inside your mind, your heart, your memories. These are the battles no one else sees, the battles where you smile on the outside while breaking on the inside. But the moment you declare his name, even in a whisper, victory starts forming in the unseen. His name carries healing for wounds you never told anyone about. It carries clarity for confusion you kept hidden. It carries power to break chains you silently learned to live with. When you declare his name over your fears, fear loses ground. When you declare his name over your shame, shame begins to dissolve. When you declare his name over your doubts, doubt loses its voice. His name realigns your identity with truth. It reminds you that you are not weak, not forgotten, not unworthy. It brings strength to parts of you that have been weary for too long. The battle within may have been fierce, but the moment his name enters the room of your heart, victory begins. It's quiet but unstoppable work. There are certain battles that feel impossible, situations that look too far gone, relationships too broken, diagnoses too painful, financial valleys too deep. These are the kinds of moments when defeat tries to settle in your spirit like a permanent resident. But when you declare his name, you announce to your circumstance that it does not have the final say. You call upon a name that has never lost, never wavered, never surrendered to the enemy. Declaring his name is not about ignoring reality. It is about inviting divine power into your reality. It tells sickness you are not in control. It tells lack, you will not limit my life. It tells despair, you will not own my future. Victory begins to rise the moment his name is spoken, because his name carries authority that creation recognizes, darkness fears, and heaven honors. Your situation may not flip instantly, but the spiritual ground beneath it shifts immediately. The impossible begins to bow to the one whose name breaks impossibility apart. And as you continue to declare his name through tears, through battles, through long nights and empty moments, you begin to see something sacred happening. You are strengthened in ways you cannot explain. Peace begins to steady you even while the smoke of the battle still swirls around you. Courage begins to rise where exhaustion once lived. Doors begin to open, chains begin to crack. The atmosphere around your life begins to shift piece by piece, moment by moment. Not because the storm disappeared overnight, but because his name planted victory inside you long before the outcome changed. Victory is not something you chase. It is something his name gives you access to. And every time his name is declared, heaven moves, darkness retreats, and your spirit stands taller. Victory does not wait for the end of the battle. It starts the moment you speak his name with faith, with trust, with surrender, believing that the one who hears you is already fighting for you, already standing with you, already writing a greater ending than the battle ever predicted. As this message draws to a close, let your heart hold on to every truth that has been spoken. Truths built on faith, anchored in hope, and strengthened by the power of his name. You have walked through words that reminded you of who you are, whose you are, and what rises inside you when life presses hard. You learn that the name you carry lifts you even when life knocks you down, steadies you in the moments when your strength feels fragile, and breathes courage into places where fear once lived. You saw how praise becomes your weapon in the darkest nights, pushing back every shadow that tries to swallow your light. You felt the reminder that trials may roar, but they are temporary, shifting, fading, passing, while his name stands eternal, unshakable, undefeated, and you discover that victory is not something you wait for at the end of the battle. Victory begins the moment you declare his name with faith that refuses to bow to the circumstance. Let these truths settle deep within you. Let them become the foundation you stand on when the storm rises again. Let them shape your responses, fuel your hope, and strengthen your spirit. You are not walking alone. You are not fighting empty-handed, and you are not living without power. His name is your covering, your confidence, your peace, your strength, your promise, and your victory. Hold it close. Speak it boldly. Live it fully. And as you go forward, may your days be filled with courage, your nights filled with peace, and your journey filled with the unshakable assurance that His presence goes before you, stays beside you, and carries you through every moment ahead. Thank you for listening. May God bless you richly and keep you always.